So, wow. Last week I really wanted to talk about one of my favorite movies, DDLJ. I thought I was making a video for a Western audience, I'd get my normal 80 or so views, and maybe I'd expose someone to something new. But oh my word, did it not go that way. The response from the Indian community here on YouTube was incredible, so many warm and incredible comments. It made me feel so welcomed. The excitement and enthusiasm that Indians have for cinema has been infectious. It felt like a culture that really cares about cinema. And oh my word, so many great suggestions. At the time of writing this, I have compiled the recommendations into a spreadsheet, and I've received about 107 unique movie recommendations. Now, I don't want to lead anyone on here. I want to talk about all kinds of media and art on this channel. Indian films are not my main focus. That being said, I do feel indebted and have a certain obligation to watch all the films that have been recommended. It may take a lifetime, but I am committed. Now, I'm not going to have something substantial to say about everything that I watch. I was thinking of maybe experimenting with shorts or like a monthly recap video to cover all the films I had watched that month. I'm not sure, but regardless, when I do have something to say, you better believe I'm going to want to talk about it. Which brings us to today's topic. The other day, I watched Taare Zameen, and it was fantastic! It made me cry for like half the movie. In the West, we think we are quite a bit more socially evolved than the rest of the world. In the micro world of Hollywood elitism, this unself-aware facade is even greater.
Oscar winner George Clooney. We're the ones who talk about AIDS when it was just being whispered. And we talked about civil rights when it wasn't really popular.
But when it comes to the big Hollywood pictures, movies that can actually drive change are few and far between. We love to look to our past. Every award season, there is at least one big war movie being nominated, or a historical figure we try to paint in a more progressive light. Film can be an emotional bomb, an empathy roller coaster. To live and see through the eyes of someone else, the potential to understand others' perspectives is unrivaled. Yet rarely is this used to say anything particularly deep about societal issues, instead opting for higher production values. Now, it does happen. For example, there have been a handful of recent movies that show the plight of the black man in America, but Black Panther is what's mainstream, and is praised for being progressive in the most surface-level way possible. Due to studios normally just playing it safe in films, self-congratulatory sentiments like this
We're the ones who talk about AIDS when it was just being whispered.
feel even more out of place than usual. In contrast, something I'm appreciating about Indian cinema is how willing it is to directly tackle and try to heal current social and cultural issues. It may just be coincidence, but all non-comedy films I've seen attempt this, which is very admirable, I think. Naturally, Taare Zameen is one of these films. Taare Zameen is about a boy, Ishan. He's about 8 or 9 and has dyslexia. If you've been through the public education system, you've known someone like him. Maybe you even were him. This film displays how soul-crushing the world is from the perspective of someone like this, how impossible even mundane tasks are when no one is willing to bend or even try to understand you. This is a world that just isn't built for people like this. All of this has to be conveyed on the shoulders of a mostly silent performance from an actor that is only 10 years old. This was really an impossible job for child actor Darshil Safara, but he absolutely nailed it. He has to be maybe the most talented child actor that's ever been in film. His eyes just tell you everything. It is through them we see his struggle in a way only the soul can perceive. This movie is about Ashan struggling to fit into the ridiculously rigid educational system. Okay, now that we've got everybody up on that base premise, let's talk a little bit about one of the early music numbers. Now, in a musical, it's really common to have something called a villain song. Think Be Prepared from The Lion King. Be prepared! It's an opportunity for the villain to strut their stuff, and for us to understand their goals. Now, Taare Zameen doesn't have a villain in the traditional sense. The closest might be his father, but ultimately he just really wants what's best for Ishan, and is just ignorant or misguided. However, the film still has a villain song. The antagonistic forces in the film are the crushing weight of capitalism and societal expectations. The music number conveys these ideas by showing the robotic lengths different members of the Awasti family go through to stay competitive every morning. These are standards that are impossible for someone like Ishan and just unhealthy for the average person. So as the song would suggest, Ishan is unfit for a life like this. Eventually, after much frustration and a refusal to accept the reality of the situation, or worse, view it as a problem at all.
Thinks my son is a retard. सोचती है मेरा बेटा नॉर्मल नहीं। अरे क्लास में 60-60 बच्चे भर रखे, क्या खाक ध्यान दे पाएगी टीचर हर बच्चे पे? Bloody nonsense.
As a last effort, Sean's father sends him to a strict boarding school, which goes about as well as you could expect. Okay, so the first hour and a bit of this movie has pretty much been torture porn. It shows this poor kid's life going from bad to worse. No matter what he tries, no one is willing to give him the support that he needs, so he will fail. The music numbers and cinematography are really playing into the depression and isolation Sean is feeling in this situation. If most movies were to try their hand at material like this, they would build on that emotion and call it a day. But Taare Zameen is a little special. It doesn't seek to only criticize. You wouldn't tell from what we've seen so far, but this film actually has an optimistic message at its core. Sean is our main character, but he is not our hero. He is a victim in this situation. Our hero is introduced 1 hour and 11 minutes into the film. This is him. He is the man who made me cry. In the context of any other film, I think I would find this scene jarring, unsettling, and let's be honest, probably a little stupid. But here it is an absolute breath of fresh air. It's the first time anybody is allowed to have fun in the film. They often say it only takes one person to make a difference. You can tell that almost immediately, Ram Shankar, betrayed by Amir Khan, is the type to jump in front of a bullet for you. He is a savior. Ram has a more modern approach to education, where he actually remembers his students are children. He then proceeds to wreck the faculty with facts and logic.
इधर हम बच्चों को तैयार करते हैं लाइफ का रेस के लिए. Kids have to compete, succeed, make a future.
हमारे विद्यालय के 3 सिद्धांत: नियम, अनुशासन, परिश्रम. सफलता के 3 स्तंभ. संपूर्ण शिक्षा का आधार. Heil Hitler.
While this is played as a joke, there is some truth to this. Just to be clear, I am not calling the education system fascist, or the perpetuators of Nazism, obviously. This is, however, a system that has no interest in enriching minds, but dehumanizing its population and creating perfect cogs, machines who can run the race that is capitalist society.
No options कहता है, no options. कोई चारा नहीं. अरे घोड़े दौड़ाने का इतना ही शौक है तो breed race horses, damn it. बच्चे क्यों पैदा करते हो?
Ram takes an immediate liking for Sean, and as soon as he can tell what's wrong, he travels across the country to speak to the parents. Yeah, I think this was the scene that did it for me. From this point onwards, I had at least one tear in my eyes. Pretty much the entire time. And there's still like a full hour of the film left. I'm gonna hope that says more about the movie than it does about me. Most movies that can provoke a tearful reaction out of me are profoundly sad or traumatic. Taare Zameen is both, but those parts are not what makes me cry. This scene was the release of all the pressure building up in the movie. A reminder that in this world there are still good people. Like how a horror will relieve suspense with a scream, or a thriller will relieve tension with a gasp. This film relieves the crushing apathy of the world with its heart. This scene made me think of Ram Shankar as nothing less than an angel, embarking on a journey because he thinks he could maybe make a difference, observing this world filled with so much anger, and helping however he can. It's really moving. At the risk of typecasting myself, I gotta say, I think a lot of this is coming through because of the music. Most every music number we've heard up to this point has been this strange, experimental, mechanical hip-hop that has derogatory terms timed with the beat. It's weird, oppressive, and uncomfortable. Which was perfect for the first half of the film, mirroring the robotic routines of his family with the actual robots. The second act has much more humanity at its heart, so the song choice can only be described as warm. Now, I don't speak Hindi, so I don't know all the specifics and the depths of the song, but you don't need to. Hindi or no Hindi, I can hear the title of the song, which I know roughly means stars on Earth, speaking of the beauty and unlimited potential of any child. It's not very subtle, and it's not trying to be. This was, to me, the moment with the highest emotional weight in the entire film. Crying was an automatic compulsion when viewing this. The aftermath of the journey is quite a heavy conversation with the parents. I don't think the copyright system will allow for me to play much of the clip, But guys, the performances in this movie are really good. I hate the father character. Like, he seems really despicable and a bad dad.
पापा कहाँ जा रहे हो पापा? पापा
जा रहा हूँ घर छोड़ के, वापस नहीं आऊँगा।
प्लीज आई एम सॉरी पापा, सॉरी बोल दे।
क्यों डरा रहे हैं बच्चे को? पापा ऑफिस के काम से जा रहे हैं।
The actor does such a good job, I think I'm now permanently biased against people with a similar bone structure. Once he returns to the private school, the plot of the movie is now, how do we save Ishan from the depths of his depression? The movie demonstrates ways in which someone with dyslexia or some other forms of learning disabilities can be better integrated into school systems, and more importantly, society at large.
Sir, he's a child with above average intelligence. उसे पूरा हक है एक नॉर्मल स्कूल में रहने का। उसे बस जरा सी मदद चाहिए हमसे।
Students like this just need a little extra attention. It's really common for kids to miss this. Here in Canada, programs like that are too often underfunded. How many millions have we lost because of this? So much potential wasted and alienated from the classroom. Minds like Einstein, Newton, and Da Vinci are all thought to have had dyslexia. If they were going through many modern school systems, would their contribution still exist? Probably not. Most schools train you to recite and answer from a crib sheet, not how to actually think. It's more important to become a cog to the machine. Which is why it's really cool the film demonstrates special teaching techniques to help with this. I hope destigmatizing them. But doesn't this just doom Ishan to become a cog with the rest of us? Realistically, is that all of our fates? A bit grim? Throughout the entire film, adults in any position of authority relay how important it is for children to be raised to run the race, so to speak.
बाहर एक बेरहम competitive दुनिया बसी है, और इस दुनिया में सभी को अपने अपने घरों में टॉपर्स और रैंकर्स उगाना है। राष्ट्रीय 95.5%, 95.6%, 95.7%, इससे कम तो गाली के बराबर है।
It's really clear how dehumanizing this mindset is. Most people simply aren't built to both live like this and be happy. A part of what's so upsetting is that Ishan has strengths outside of this system. He has real talent for the visual arts, but hardly nobody sees this, and those that do definitely don't care. A major part of this film is its critique on how we as a society value the arts. The film uses the school's acceptance and tolerance for the arts as a way to illustrate how the school, and in a sense society at large, treats Ishan. Art class is at first a rigid factory that creates correct lines, with child abuse mixed in. Then Ram shows the children how art is an expression of the self. Finally, the adults get it, and have genuine fun painting. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this lets them reconnect with their humanity a little bit. The climax of the movie is everybody learning to value art, thus everybody now values Ishan. My one gripe with the climax of the movie is that we never get to see the father's reaction to all of this, and he never gets his moment of appreciation for art. If you consider the final scenes from his perspective, the father is really just happy that Ishan is doing better from an academic perspective. When he's going through the parent-teacher progress reports at the end of the movie, his painting and artistic contributions are hardly even mentioned to the parents. It was a little disappointing to me, since the father was such a huge part of the film's emotional core. Maybe the best scene in the entire movie is the absolute tear-jerking conversation between him and Ram about what it means to care for and support your children. At the end of it, Ishan's father is so broken he can't bring himself to face his son anymore. This emotional thread never got the full, weighty conclusion I felt it deserved. I will admit the film is balancing a lot of heavy emotions and themes as is. I could see an argument for adding more to the climax would be too overwhelming, but to play devil's advocate, I did find this disappointing. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Taare Zameen Par's relationship with art. In the spirit of things, while I talk, the background footage will be me doing a quick sketch. Drawing as B-roll for a video like this is an idea I stole from my friend Matt. However, I don't think he's done it for one of his videos yet, so once he gets to it, I can say I did it first and he stole it from me. This is a portrait using ink and pigmented inks, which are a very difficult medium to work with. I've had some accidental successes with them in the past, so this is just me desperately trying to recreate the styling of something I've already done. So after seeing Taare Zameen Par, what is the value of art? What role should it play in education? Art has the power to empower. The act of creation is something that is almost universally satisfying. The simple pleasure of using your hands to make something in your medium, whether it be painting, writing, carpentry, or any number of other trades, it's just good for the soul. The focus in modern society for industry and efficiency, while having a lot of positives, make people forget how important it is to be in touch with these aspects of ourselves. Not to mention, everything we make in this way carries a little piece of ourselves in them, and in a sense makes us hurt in a way that just simply existing doesn't allow. Taare Zameen paints a bleak, almost dystopian view on what happens when art isn't not just valued, but self-expression itself is frowned on. In a wider context, we so quickly forget how to empathize with someone unlike us, when we are not reasonably allowed to interact with these parts of ourselves. In the film, all the adults had to reconnect with that childlike joy for creating. The fact we so easily let something like artistic expression fall into the bucket of childhood whimsy is disappointing. I'm going to recommend Taare Zameen to a lot of people now. I think people specifically in the West could get a lot out of the messages within the film. So to the hundreds of Indians in my comments that recommended this movie, thank you. Like, genuinely, I really appreciate it. I love this movie, and I might have never heard about it if it wasn't for all you lovely folks. In the West, the stereotype that is held about countries like India is that they are very traditional and conservative. The kind of place that is politically and socially less evolved. But I just watched a movie from India about issues that affect us here in the West so deeply. The unhealthy pressure to be perfect, the skills that our society values, and it demands that you have to be functional, as well as showing the importance and obligation we have to educate those with special challenges. It does more than just address the issues, it tries to solve them, while most Western media would be either too afraid or disinterested to tackle similar issues. Taare Zameen shows how place and value in art can enrich our lives, and on a wider scale, a societal appreciation for things like this can stop us from being cogs in the machine. It also shows how committing just a few more resources to the differently abled, their lives can be seriously changed. One person is all it takes. The film said all of this in the year 2007. In my home country of Canada, 17 years later, we are barely doing any better for kids like this. On top of that, very few mainstream films would dare address any of the themes present in Taare Zameen. What morals can we extract from recent Western productions? War bad, racism bad, sexism bad. Well, yes, relevant. Films barely take the discussion past their most obvious points, and as I mentioned earlier, almost always frame themselves in the past, almost to say look how far we've come, with little regard for how we should move forward. As Taare Zameen suggests, art is the primary lens through which perspectives broaden and change can be incited, yet recently we aren't using this privilege to say much of anything. Like Amir Khan's character in the film, I can't help but look out and wonder how many millions have we lost? How much potential have we snuffed out of humanity? Out of ourselves? Please consider the role of art in society. It is through our wallets and intention we vote on what matters to us. When possible, support art of substance rather than products. Wow, these videos are really becoming a way to express my disenfranchisement of Western cinema. I hope this doesn't get too toxic for me. Alright, have a good day everyone.